Hello, this is Hamlet, and this is my Gold Challenge Mode guide for Grimrail Depot. The first issue in this zone is that you can skip up to 12 mobs either by invising most of this opening hallway or by invising some mobs later on in the train. Both are viable. We're going to do the latter. As you can see, we're starting to fight in this hallway. If you are going to kill this trash, you need some good CC options generally because of the Grimrail technicians. They have two important spells: Activate, which if it goes off causes an iron star to explode, doing quite a lot of damage, and 50,000 volts, one of which went off right there, which stuns the group for a few seconds. If you're not stunned as the healer, you can cleanse one person. The key is that activating must be interrupted. If you stun or knock back the caster, it'll try to activate again immediately after, whereas 50,000 volts has to be stunned. It can't be interrupted. So you have to have enough interrupts and non-interrupt ways of stunning or disabling them to stop both of those from going off. The first two pulls had one technician each, along with a bunch of less important mobs, so we pulled them together. AoE stuns are generally important for that pull. You want to get the two technicians together quickly, use your AoE stun rotation to keep them locked down for as long as possible, and then if they're still alive after that, which shouldn't be very long, pay attention to them with single target stuns, knockbacks, and interrupts as needed. During that pull, as mobs started to die, we looked over and pulled these two overseers that patrol between here and near where the boss is. The sooner you can get them in, the better, once mobs start dying and this pack is in good shape. There are two static overseers standing over on our right, which we never pull. We're going to skip these two mobs along with two packs in the train, which make 10 for our 12 skipped mobs. When whatever overseers we have pulled are low, we're going to go over and engage the final two technicians, which are alone over near the boss, and the same considerations apply. You want to keep them both together and stunned as long as you can, and then once they're free, have assignments of who's going to deal with both activating and 50,000 volts on both of the mobs. Depending on when you had a chance to pull the overseers, you may have one left over at high HP when you finish off the technicians. If you do, consider dragging him right into the boss fight. He's not hard with the boss, and starting the boss many seconds earlier is more important than pre-potting. We had them dead, so we're going to pre-pot, including me for Heart of the Wild, as we start DPSing this boss. We delay our Bloodlust a little bit so that it overlaps with the first time Railmaster Rocket Spark is stunned, because he takes double damage while that's going on. There he is jumping up for his first missile barrage now, so that first stun will be in just a few seconds. DPS should remember that he's immune while he's up there, which you should take into account when you're figuring out how to switch targets back and forth, because you do want the two to die at just about the same time. While Rocket Spark is back on the ground, one of the key mechanics that everyone in the group has to know how to avoid is acquiring targets. It's the red circle that appears under your feet, followed by the missile that does quite a lot of damage, and there's not very much time to react. The key is that there's this debuff that appears on you called acquiring targets. You can also recognize it because there will be a target reticle icon floating over your head right there. The red circle appears right when that hits 0, so if you just watch that and take a step to the side as it's expiring, you dodge the ability very easily. When it comes to Borka, his most important ability is his Man Dash, which the tank has to know how to aim in order to knock down Rocket Spark. His only other important ability is his Slam, which is an AoE interrupt on the whole group. If you're a caster or healer, you have to keep an eye on that for the entire fight. Focusing him is generally a good idea. It's really easy to get complacent and forget about it like I did right there, and eating a 6-second interrupt is just a big pain, regardless of who you are. Other than that, your only goal, as I mentioned, is to DPS them down evenly. Each of them enrages significantly when the other one dies, but Borka's is much worse. It'll probably kill your tank in a matter of a few seconds. So drop him while Rocket Spark is low, and then finish off Rocket Spark soon afterwards. And as you can see, I position near the door just to squeeze in a few extra seconds of drink the moment combat ends while everyone else is running forward to start the trash. It becomes a habit in challenge modes to always look for those few seconds of drink without slowing anyone down, especially now that there's no more restorative amber. Now we come to the ramp with the 3 bombardiers. When you pull the last one and start fighting it near the exit, you will not have bombs rain down on you anymore. You can consider, especially if you really need to shave off time, dragging all 3 up there and fighting them. But 3 bombardiers at once is extremely mean to the tank, especially with the stacking debuff that they put on him. So we do 1 and then 2, so that we fight 2 at once while we're at the end and not having bombs rain on anyone. Everyone in the group has to get a bit used to dodging the red circles. Sometimes it looks like there are a lot of them. You just have to remember that each one has a few second delay, so sometimes you have to stand in one just for a second while you wait for another one to go off so you can safely move forward into that space. Right here, when the first bombardier died, is when we know that the tank's generally going to be okay. The period where the second one's right about to die is the most intense because the debuff has stacked up some and he's still getting hit by 2. It continues to stack, so you should still be careful when there's only one left. As soon as this is down and the door opens, whoever in the group can move the fastest charges ahead to trigger the cutscene. We have it with about 9:15 on the clock was when you triggered it, which was a little slower than we liked for this route. Your time will of course be different if you invis the start, so a better time to compare is when you're about to pull Nightrog. I sneak in a few seconds of drink while they move up to engage this pack. It's not too bad. It has 3 iron infantry, which are generally irrelevant mobs, and you meet your first gunner. We've considered going forward and pulling it right into the next pack because it's pretty tame, but moving when you have a gunner in the pack is a hassle. They're the ones that stand still and use the flamethrower, which is a very dangerous ability, even if it's easy to handle while you're standing still. This pack has a Grenadier, a Boomer, and a Hulk. The Boomer uses a mortar ability that everyone has to look out for because it can kill you. The Hulk is sometimes patrolling at the back. We just get him whenever he wanders in. If you have someone in the group who can dispel enrages, a Hunter, Rogue, or Druid, it's very easy to deal with the Hulk. You can pretty much leave it up for as long as you want. If you don't, you actually have to prioritize the Hulk once it gets pulled because its damage will continue to increase if nobody tranquilizes it. Once this pack is at low HP, especially the Boomer, we move on to the next one. We would also be fine if the Hulk were at higher HP. This pack introduces the first Cinder Seer, which is an annoying mob. It casts Lava Wreath on any ranged target, which silences them, but goes away whenever they're not within 12 yards of any person, so you want to be spread out. It also puts that fire circle on the ground, Flame Tongue, which does fire damage and also buffs other mobs in it. Usually we try to time our stun so that it never gets that down, but here we let one through. Regardless, we try to focus the Cinder Seer down quickly, and then the rest of this is an easy pack. We are going to finish this pack completely before pulling the next one, which is an annoying pack that has 2 gunners in it. We're going to take a few extra seconds to pull it back here into this car so that there's a little more space to work with. The room where it starts in is a cramped space to try to fight them, and the bridge between the 2 cars is tough because it gives LOS issues to ranged and healers, and it's very narrow for the tank and melee to try to dodge the 2 flamethrowers. The flamethrowers can become quite a pain if they get out of sync, and they do a lot of damage even to the tank. So we're going to pull into here and start our stun rotation while trying to work down one gunner as quickly as possible. Once it dies, it's a very tame pack. After this pack dies, we're going to invis to Nightrog, which is an easy invis run. The door to his room is open, so you can just run right into it. The 10 mobs we're about to skip in the next car, plus the 2 overseers we left standing at the start of the zone, is 12, which is as many as you can skip. If you choose to skip all of them at the start, then you would go past the entire opening hallway and pull one mob with you into the first boss. One of the packs that we skip here right before the boss has 2 Cinder Seers in it, which makes it a particular pain. In general, which invis route you take should be based on what sort of CC you have and whether you can handle the twin technician packs at the start of the zone. So we're pulling Nightrog at just about 6:15. That's what it was. I have some bug which makes my timer go away during boss fights. I'll have to look into that. Nightrog Phase 1 is very easy. He has this black rock mortar that you look at where he's facing and you can move out of it. He should probably only get around 1 off before he hits 60%, which is when he's going to jump up and transition into Phase 2. Understanding Phase 2 of this fight is all about the damage on the assault cannon. Every time you kill a boomer and use the homing shell, you're going to do 25% damage to the cannon. There's a boomer in the first pair of big ads, and then the third pair is double boomer, and then there's not another one until I think the 5th. And you really don't want to wait that long. So that means that you need to use the 3 boomers you get in the first 3 ad waves to end the fight, which means you have to do 25% damage to the assault cannon yourself. We start with 1 DPS full-time on the cannon, which also causes it to drop Slag Blast harmlessly near itself, and the others work down the first wave quickly with cooldowns and things. It's the hardest wave because it's the only one where you don't have flamethrower ammo. Once they're dead, I loot the boomer and use this homing shell because the cannons have a cooldown on that homing shot and you want to make sure it comes back up in time. And someone else in the group loots the flamethrower ammo off of the gunner and uses that to work down the next wave quickly with 1 grenadier and 1 gunner. With that gunner dead, you now have 2 people in the group with flamethrower ammo, which you can use to very easily take out the trash for the remainder of the fight, particularly the big mobs. You don't have to worry too much about the iron infantry. Ideally, each of those people will save 1 round of flame ammo for the final phase. You also have the 3 grenades that I looted here, which you can use either to help out with damage on the assault cannon to make sure you hit the 50% target, or to help kill Trash or the boss. I probably should have used one on this boomer here because it looked like it got missed by the flames. Those 2 boomers spawned, the second of which is just dying now, are actually your cue to end the fight. As soon as they spawn, you want to kill them both as soon as possible, loot the 2 homing shells. Here I am using the second one now. Use them to drop the cannon from 50% to 0 to end the phase, and then as soon as Nightrog pops out, you want to drag him to between the 2 cannons and have 2 people waiting with their last shots of flame to end the fight within just a few seconds. As soon as he dies, you want to move quickly on into the slag car. There will be fire on the right as you're running in, and after that will be the double, the one that puts fire on both sides. You can either try to beat it, as we did here, or you can wait that one out. If you try to beat it, just be careful because the fire puts a heavy dot on someone, and as you can see, they can die if they wind up taking a few ticks. Otherwise, as soon as you get to the end of this fire, there's going to be 1 Farseer waiting, plus another Farseer nearby that you can pull easily. On Farseers, you want to make sure to interrupt Storm Shield, which is a quick cast, but if one goes up, you can either take a lot of damage or you have to stop DPSing that one. They also put down Thunder Zone, which will make you move a little bit. There are 3 Farseers in this room. We pull these 2 right up front so that we don't have to deal with those 2 hazards quite as much while we go on and fight the mobs later in the room. And as they're dying, we're going to go on ahead and pull the entire rest of the room. There are probably a few different ways you can handle the order of that, though. The key mobs in the rest of the room are the 3rd Farseer. There's a Scout. His important ability is Arcane Blitz, which he's casting here. It puts purple circles on the ground that everyone has to move out of. And the Captain. She uses Reckless Slash that you just used right there. It does an AoE right near her in melee, and anyone DPSing her in melee has to move out just for a second while that's going off. Other than that, make sure you pull all of the loaders when you pull the final big mobs of the room, the small non-elite mobs that you want to get cleaved down. You can definitely consider healing cooldowns and things here to help pull the back half of this room very aggressively while dealing with all the damage from the Captain and the Farseers. You should decide and practice whether you think you need them more here or at Tovra, who can also be pretty intense as far as damage. As this pack is dying, you want to stay generally at this near side of the car because the dragon is going to fly in afterwards and breathe on the far side before she lands. You can see a few people here are standing a little too far and they take damage. As soon as that trash ended, I clicked my drink. We're going to have about 10 free seconds of RP before the boss lands and becomes pullable. If you glance at the clock right now, you're going to see we're at 1:47 when we pull. That's tighter than we'd like, but it is enough. We do have Bloodlust and Heart of the Wild back up for this fight. The main mechanic at this fight is the lightning dropping from the sky. There's the first one there. The key to that is that it drops where people are. So you can see at range, the 3 of us all stood at the left, and we only got the 1 segment of lightning here in the back third of the car. And now we're going to stand in the middle for the second one, same thing again. And the melee are doing something similar over on the other side. Freezing snares are another important ability that drop on players. They take a second or 2 to arm, so they're not very hard to move off of. Depending on your class, if you can break roots, you might be able to pop one and clear it pretty easily in order to open up space. You don't necessarily want to do that all the time because it does do damage, and it's also an AoE, so you might catch other people in your group, but it's an option if it's in your way for moving back into a segment. The only other important ability is Tovra's Spinning Spear, which you just want to watch where it's flying out whenever he casts it, especially if you're in melee. There I pop a freezing trap on the group and stampede it off everyone, which works. When the boss gets very low, around 15%, the next lightning breath is going to be very large. It'll cover the whole platform except for 1 segment. Generally, the best way to handle this is to have something like a major healing cooldown or people's personals or healing tonics, something that lets you just weather the damage while you quickly finish off the fight, rather than suddenly having everyone start moving when there's only a few percent left. Here we got lucky and a breath happened at around 16%, and we actually wind up finishing off the boss before we ever even get the big breath, but normally it's something to watch out for. There's our gold. This run was a little closer than we liked, but in general we found this route to be pretty effective and consistent. So good luck in your own attempts, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these videos in Warlords. Thank you for watching.